In today's video, we're going to be changing out the power steering fluid in my 4Runner, and while we're in there, we're going to upgrade the reservoir. Bevinsee sent us something pretty cool, so let's check it out.
Before we get this installed, let's take a closer look at what Bevinsee has put together here. Right away, the biggest difference is in the construction. Unlike the factory plastic reservoir, this one is built entirely from aluminum, giving it a much more premium and durable feel under the hood. The reservoir features a black anodized finish that not only looks great, but also helps protect against corrosion and wear over time. One thing I really like is the CNC machine cap. It gives the reservoir a clean, finished appearance, and it feels much more substantial than the factory cap. Bevinsee also includes a sight tube on the side, allowing you to quickly check your power steering fluid level without having to remove the cap. The kit comes with the necessary mounting hardware and is designed as a direct fit replacement for the factory reservoir, making installation straightforward with no major modifications required. Overall, this is one of those upgrades that adds both function and appearance. It's a small detail, but it definitely helps clean up the engine bay and gives a more custom look. This is where you'll find your power steering reservoir on a 5th gen Toyota 4Runner. Now, one thing that often gets overlooked on these vehicles is power steering fluid maintenance. Toyota doesn't list a specific replacement interval in the normal maintenance schedule, but many owners and technicians recommend inspecting the fluid regularly and replacing it somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 miles, depending on your driving conditions. If you do a lot of towing, off-roading, or drive in hot climates, changing the fluid more frequently can help keep the steering system operating smoothly and reduce wear on components over time. A good rule of thumb is to check the color of the fluid. Fresh power steering fluid is typically bright red and fairly transparent. If the fluid has become dark brown, smells burnt, or looks contaminated, it's probably time for a change. My 4Runner is due for some fresh fluid, so while we're taking care of that maintenance today, it's the perfect opportunity to upgrade the factory reservoir with this aluminum unit from Bevinsee.
Alright, so here's what I'm going to be using today. I've got a 5mm hex bit, I've got a 12mm socket, I've got a ratchet, I've got an extension, I've got a plastic water bottle, I've got some tubing that came with my Mighty Vac kit. My Mighty Vac kit is what I'm going to use to get rid of the excess fluid that's inside of the reservoir so we can remove it. But that being said, let's go ahead and start. So this is our power steering fluid reservoir. I'm going to start by taking a cap off. We're going to set this off to the side. Now that we have access to the power steering fluid, I'm going to feed the tubing down into the hole and I'm going to start pumping out the fluid. It's going to catch in this little can right here so I can dispose of it later. We need to start by getting this completely empty, so let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, I pump and the fluid starts to fill in the little catch can. So we're going to do this until we get all of the power steering fluid out of the reservoir. As we can see here, the power steering fluid is pretty dirty. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this out of here and then we'll get ready to remove the reservoir. Now that I have the reservoir emptied out as much as I can get it with the Mighty Vac, I need to go ahead and disconnect these two hoses. So we've got one hose right here and we've got one hose right here. I'm going to use these needle nose pliers to get them off. Again, we're taking off this hose and we're taking off this hose by pinching on these little clamps right here. This guy right here is kind of a pain in the butt to get off, especially when you drop your pliers down into the abyss. So now I get to go up under the 4Runner and dig those pliers out from under my skid plate. So this is sweet. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and struggle to get that out of here and keep getting that clamp off. It took me way longer than I wanted to get the clamp off of this back hose here. It was very difficult. I spent a lot of time on that one, but I finally got it off. So now we can actually get this reservoir pulled out of here. We're going to use our 12mm and we're going to undo 3 bolts that are down at the bottom. I'll show you those right here. All right, we have 1 bolt there. Another bolt right there, and we've got 1 bolt there. All 3 of the bolts are surrounding the reservoir. And once we get those out, we can pull this whole piece out and get ready to install our new reservoir. Everything is against me today. That literally just fell in that hole down there. Ugh, boy. All right, well, patience. We'll get it out with some pliers. On to the next bolt. Hopefully I don't drop that one.
All right, so looking at the stock reservoir, we've got this bracket on the back that we're going to reuse for a new one. I believe, since I've never actually done this, that in order to get this off, I'm going to need to pry these pieces down and pull this piece back to get this to slide off. Let's give it a go and see what happens.
Hi, hello. Oh gosh. Yeah. All right, I gotta get work done. We'll play ball in a minute.
All right, let's get this thing off here. All right, just like that. What I had to do to get this to loosen up is I just peeled this top piece down a little bit, and it gave it enough wiggle to slide the little metal clip in here out. The old reservoir is now off the old bracket. Let's get ready to start putting our new reservoir on the old bracket. Here we have the original bracket. We're going to open the hardware kit that came with our new reservoir. If we turn this around, we've got these two channels right here, and if you look at this piece right here, it's kind of like an upside down triangle. All we're going to do is slide this piece right into this groove right here. Our holes will align right here on the back, and then this piece is just going to sit right here on top of this lip. So it's going to connect just like that, and we're going to use this little guy here on the back, and we're going to screw these in. So let's go ahead and put this thing together, and we'll look at it when it's done. The old bracket is now installed on our new reservoir. So when you get done, it'll be kind of like this. We have that big block in the back. We have our bracket. We have that little piece here, and you're going to use the long edge of that little piece at the bottom facing towards the bracket. And then we just add in our two 8mm bolts here, tighten it down, and this is how we get the reservoir ready to go back into the 4Runner. Now we're going to take it and set it back in and bolt it back in using the original bolts that came with the bracket.
All right, now for the tricky one. Get up under these hoses. I'm gonna reach down up under, and we'll get it in right there. A little ratchet. Get up under. Slowly start working her back on. All right, Bubba, come on. There we go. A little more. And snug like a bug in a rug. There we go. There she is, back in, nice and sturdy. We have our new power steering reservoir by Bevinsee added in here. Now what we need to do is go ahead and reconnect those hoses we disconnected. This is the thing that almost defeated me last night, hence why I'm still doing this today. So let's go ahead and get these hoses back on here, and hopefully the clamp on that big hose doesn't want me to send my ratchet through the stratosphere again. Yeah, let's go ahead and get these things on here. One hose minus the clamps, and then the big hose, my biggest enemy here. This is gonna be the fun one because I wasn't able to get this clamp off all the way because I think I need a new clamp, but we're gonna get it back on here somehow. We're just gonna give it a good push. Maybe not. I'm gonna have to find a way to loosen this thing up. So I'm gonna sit here and struggle with this to kind of back it off a little bit because I can't get this hose back on here. What I ended up doing last night on the other one to get this off was I got this clamp down far enough and I was able just to pull the hose off, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to reverse that. So let me try to get this clamp to loosen up a little bit. All right, I was struggling with this hose for quite a while, mostly the clamp. So I struggled with it so much that I broke the clamp. So this thing was a pain in the butt to move to begin with, and since I bent it all at crap, it was no longer working the way it was intended. So I had to go to the hardware store real quick, and I picked up this guy right here. Advanced Auto Parts is where I got this. That clamp works a lot easier than this one, and it is just as secure as that one. This thing is scrapped now, and we're gonna use that. So our next step, I'm gonna put this hose back on with the new clamp. I'm gonna take the lid off of this. I'm gonna take this hose off, and we're gonna use the truck's power steering pump to pump out steering fluid from this line here. So I'm gonna run a hose from this to my plastic bottle. We're gonna go in the cab, we're gonna turn the wheel, and we're gonna pump out as much steering fluid as we can. Know that you're not gonna get it all out this way, and that's completely fine. And yes, it's okay to mix power steering fluid, but we're gonna try to get out as much as we can. So I'm gonna go ahead, reconnect that hose, take the cap off to let air in. Then I'm going to disconnect this hose, run my little line out, and start pumping out power steering fluid. So let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. Holy crap. Why ain't that coming off now? There we go. Mother trucker. To loosen up the cap on the reservoir, I'm using an 18mm socket. So let's get this thing off. Go, nice and easy. Careful with your socket, you know, be easy on the top. You don't want to mess it up too bad. All right, so there's the inside, nice and clean, as I almost dropped that. I'm gonna set this somewhere better, out of the way. So there's the inside of our new reservoir. What we're gonna do now is hook up that hose. I'm gonna go in and you'll see the perspective from inside the cab, and then I'll set up the camera out here so you can see what's happening with the bottle. All right, so this is the setup I have going on right now. I have the hose from my Mighty Vac stuck into the small hose. I've ran it inside and I've set up this little styrofoam like bottle catch rig over here. I'm hoping this will keep it steady while I pump all this stuff out. But what should happen is I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna turn the wheel back and forth multiple times, nice and slow, to pump out the power steering fluid into this bottle. It's gonna take me a few reps, but I'm gonna go ahead and get it started. All right, with the ignition on position, I'll be able to turn my wheel. I can see my tube right there, so I'm gonna start slowly turning it back and forth, and it should start pumping out. Ideally, you want to jack the front end of this up because it's going to make it a lot easier on the tires, but I'm being lazy. So I can see the fluid going through the tube, so this is working, which is nice. Best to have another person to do this with you so they can let you know when the bottle's full. I'm gonna have to do this a few times and then go out there and check the bottle periodically and dump it, but I'm gonna do this until I get as much of the fluid out as I can. As I could see from inside the cab, and I could see in the footage, I was pumping this stuff out. But what I need to do is make sure that I put more fluid back into this reservoir. So I'm going to use some of our new fluid. I'm going to put it in the reservoir, and then as we're pumping this out, this fluid will start to go from the dirty brown color to a nice clear color. So let's go ahead and put our fluid in here, and then we'll keep going. All right, so this is what we're using to replace the power steering fluid in the 4Runner. This is Dexon 3. It's good to go. It's good stuff. It's not the original stuff that came in here, but it'll do just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling up our reservoir so we can keep pumping out the dirty stuff and get the good stuff in there. So let's keep going. Be careful when you're pouring this in here not to spill it all over the place, because I've already made a mess once last night. I'm not trying to do it again. All right, guys, you know what's probably a good idea to do? Plug the other side. So now that I've gotten most of the fluid out of the line, what we want to see here now is a nice smooth surface. No air bubbles or bubbles forming. I've started to see the new power steering fluid come through the line, so I know I filter out as much of the old fluid as possible. This surface is starting to taper out and become smooth. Once this is completely smooth and I have no more bubbles, we're gonna get the cap back on this thing, and then we're gonna reinstall our hose the way it's supposed to be, and we'll be done with the job. We've got the vehicle running now. I've got my father-in-law helping me watch it as we're making sure we get all the air bubbles out. So we started it, turning the wheel left and right, making sure everything is good to go. I can already tell a massive difference in the steering. We're gonna finish up with this. We're gonna let everything settle. Then we're gonna talk about it, check it out. All right, guys, real quick. We got it all installed. Everything was running real good, and then I noticed I had a nice little drip directly under where the fittings are. So from the factory, the fittings aren't screwed in all the way, so save yourself some trouble later. Tighten those fittings in before you actually put your hoses back on and you start filling this thing full of fluid, because if you don't, it's gonna get everywhere. Other than that, this install was pretty straightforward, and this thing looks absolutely awesome.
That wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed the install, and I hope you took away a lot of great information. Bevinsee, thank you guys for sending out this reservoir. It was really well built. It was really fun to install, and I learned a lot doing it. If you find yourself interested in owning this reservoir for your own 5th gen, I'll leave the information in the description block below. But like always, guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you could do me a favor, give me a like, give me a comment, or subscribe if you're new to the channel, it would be much appreciated. Other than that, we'll see you in the next video.